main thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Just Win podcast. We are live after the Raiders lost to the Bengals 41-24. That's Tashan Reed, that's Vic Tafer. They were both at the game enjoying, or maybe not enjoying, a bad day at the office, as Antonio Pierce called it. This one looked like it got away from them early. What was the mood in the locker room like after?
Not good, not positive. I think, it's kind of, we talked about kind of like a broken record where, first drive, they marched down the field, they score, and that's pretty much it. That's all she wrote. And the defense today had nothing really to offer against Joe Burrow. So it was the final score is a little misleading. It wasn't that close.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds rough to say about a 17-point loss, but it could have been much worse than that and probably should have been if the Bengals were still trying in the fourth quarter. But yeah, it's pretty solemn in the locker room as you would expect after any loss, but especially your fifth one in a row. It's probably the lowest I've seen Max Crosby, I would say, is the last couple of weeks. He usually, even after losses, has something loquacious to say or, rah-rah kind of inspirational. And the last couple of weeks has just been he seems sad. He was talking to defensive line coach Robbie Leonard for a while before he talked to the media. And, they're not in a good place. I mean, you never are when you lose as many games in a row. I mean, it's the second longest losing streak in the league right now behind, old friend Derek Carr and the Saints, who've lost 7 in a row. But the season's pretty much over. I know they're at 2-7. Technically, they're not eliminated from anything, but they might as well be. They would have to basically run the table to be in the running for anything towards the end of the season. And I think we're all pretty confident that's not happening. And so it's kind of a tricky spot to be in when you know your season's over before your bye week even gets there.
I think Max said, what he said, losing 5 in a row sucks. That was a quote, I think.
Fucking sucks.
Fucking sucks. I apologize.
Yeah.
I started cleaning up for the family and kids out there, but sorry, kids. It fucking sucks to lose 5 in a row.
Yeah, well, it seems like every Raider game follows a very similar script. Like the offense looks pretty good in the beginning when the plays are scripted. Usually the first 15 are scripted. And then after the first 15, they fall off. They make some boneheaded decisions at the end of half. And then the defense sorts of lets go of the rope eventually. And then the score looks pretty bad. But in this game, I think things got out of hand a lot faster than normal. And where the game really took a turn was before halftime. The Bengals were able to score a touchdown. They would get the ball first in the second half. They got the ball first. So they went up 7 points. They got the ball in the second half. They scored again. And then the Raiders tried some weird play where Madison was going out of motion and back into the backfield to get the handoff. Didn't look like it had a chance, even if he got the handoff. Fumbled it.
That was DJ Turner on that one.
What was that?
That was DJ Turner on the.
Oh, sorry. That was DJ
reverse.
Turner, who fumbled the handoff. Not used to getting that many handoffs, but fumbled it away. And then the Bengals scored another touchdown off of that turnover, and the game was pretty much over at that point.
I guess they gave the fumble to Gardner. I guess it was a high handoff. So Gardner Minshew had the fumble, so now he's got a league high 12 turnovers on the year. So now like one of the last straws for Antonio Pierce because he's preaching no turnovers. So they need to switch in the third quarter.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of funny you say opening script. Luke Getsy got mad at the media earlier this week for saying opening script. Apparently, that's something we created. It doesn't actually exist.
Didn't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's like 5 of the last 6 games or something. Jimmy Durkin tweeted it out, but they've had like a long touchdown drive to start the game, like basically every week during this losing streak, except for one, and it just completely falls off a cliff after that. And so I don't really know the rhyme or reason behind that. If they just suddenly stop running the plays that were running from them earlier, or if defenses just adjust and they don't have counters to those adjustments, but. Another big factor I think for the offense in this one was they got hit up pretty hard by injuries. Colton Miller went down pretty early due to an ankle injury. He had a boot on after the game. Then backup left tackle Andrews Pete went down due to an ankle injury. Then left guard Cody Whitehair, who was already coming off the bench for somebody else, went down with an ankle injury. And so the offensive line just kind of went to shit after that. I mean, they haven't been able to run the ball all year, but especially with that going on, the pass game was kind of cooked. They started getting pressured pretty often as well. And so, um, I think it was a mix of, we've talked about the coaching mistakes ad nauseum, whether it's Antonio Pierce's game management or it's Luke Getsy's play calling, but it's also this roster just isn't good. Like it's a bad roster. And I think, before the season, they were probably in a place where you could say maybe they could be competitive when you're looking at the team, but this wasn't a roster that was built for depth. Like they don't have much depth and they've sustained a lot of injuries. I mean, even coming into this week, they had a lot, and then they lost 5 players today due to ankle injuries because of, I guess, the turf at the Bengals field is just awful or something. And so this, a few teams can sustain that many injuries, but especially not a team that's good. And so, or this bad, I should say. And, a mix of bad coaching and a bad roster, this is what you get.
The O-line was actually down to their last 5 guys because of all the injuries. So if they had gotten somebody else hurt, I'm not sure what they would have done, because I would say normally my guess would be Harrison Bryant, but he also left the game with an ankle injury. So they really, I don't think had any plan if somebody else went down in that game. And thankfully it didn't happen. But yeah, definitely wasn't. We look at the lack of success on offense the last 5 games, but obviously losing all those guys up front doesn't help anything. So I think that's part of the equation today. And you mentioned that stat where it's kind of crazy. I got the full breakdown. So it's 4 of the last 5 games, they've scored a touchdown on their first possession. And then in the other 50 possessions in those 5 games, they have 4 touchdowns total.
Jesus Christ.
And they've all come in garbage time. They've all come with 5 minutes or less left in the game, down 14 or more points. So they've only scored 4 in the first drive, 4 at the last drive in garbage time, and nothing in between on 46 other possessions in 5 games.
So was Getsy mad because he was rejecting the concept that he script plays? Is he saying he doesn't script plays?
His point was you can't really script like there's a penalty and you get pushed back and like things happen in the first 15 plays where it's not really scripted, was his point, which I guess to some extent makes sense, but there is definitely a basic list of plays you draw out you want to run at the start of a game. So, but I think he obviously he's in a bad spot. I think he might be in real trouble this bye week, I think. But we'll wait and see what happens. But I think he's on pretty thin ice, so I'm sure he's a little sensitive when we talk to us a little bit.
Yeah. So just for context, usually offensive coordinators would script the first 15 plays. They would, but things happen like Getsy's talked about. There's penalties or sacks, so you go off the script. Let's say if you're a 3rd long situation and the next play in your script is like a first down type of call, then you obviously are going to go off the script, but then you go back on the script when you have a chance. So I think, it's semantics to argue that, yes, obviously sometimes you have to go off the script. You can't just stick to the first 15 forever, but usually you have a bit of an advantage with the scripted plays because, you're mixing things up a lot. You're changing formations, you're using shifts and motions. When you're writing these first 15, you want to make sure you're really testing the defense and trying a bunch of new things out, which is why, usually first 15 looks like there's a lot of energy that you're moving the ball. And also the offense gets to practice the first 15. So you go out to practice, you're practicing the first 15, what to do, what to expect. And especially if you have a good scout on a defense and you think you know what they're doing, then the first 15 is usually pretty good. But then after the first 15, guys are making adjustments, defenses are making adjustments, and then it's up to you to adjust. And obviously, the Raiders have not adjusted very well when they're off that script.
Oh, I mean, and also bottom line is they can't run the ball, so it's hard to adjust and when teams. I don't think it takes them a drive to realize that hey, these guys can't run the ball. Let's gang up on the quarterback and the receivers. But I think in that first drive today, I think Madison's first 3 carries were 17 yards. After that, they had nothing. They had 43 yards the rest of the day on 18 carries. So it's a cliche. You can't win if you can't run the ball, and they can't stop the run either. So if you can't run the ball, and you can't stop the run. That's when you lose 5 straight games.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Tip.
then coming into the game, the Bengals were the worst team in defensive success rate against the run. So if you can't run the ball against the Bengals, you're gonna have a tough time running the ball on anyone.
Yeah, I mean they rushed for 60 yards, and this one they limited to 2.9 yards per carry. That's pretty terrible, but it's kind of been the norm for them, as crazy as that sounds. And Alexander Madison, clearly he's not a lead back, but it doesn't look like Zamir White is either. And of course, the offensive line issues are a big part of it. I mean, they had 4 different offensive line combinations in this game alone, and they already came in without starting center Andre James and Dylan Parham, usually a starter. He was coming off the bench. I think he's still recovering a bit from that foot injury, and so they were already shorthanded. And then you go down another couple steps, even against one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. Like you're probably not going to have that much success, and so. But they just don't have the few teams are built to have a lot of offensive success when you're averaging like 2 yards a carry. I mean, not that many teams are built that way, but especially for one that has a lack of an answer at quarterback. I mean, Gardner Minshew clearly isn't the guy. He got benched today for the second time in the first 9 games of the season. This time it was for Desmond Ridder, who didn't look any better. And I think they were talking about that as the game played out, but he doesn't look like he's the answer either. So they don't have a quarterback and they can't run the ball. And so, I understand the criticisms of Gesicki, but he's kind of working with a shitty hand.
Yeah, the left tackle situation was really bad today. I think Colton Miller left the game early, and then, as you mentioned, Andres Pete struggled, and then he got injured, and then Thayer Munford had to play. And Munford actually, his best play has come at left tackle in the past, but he just did not look like he was ready to play left tackle today. And anytime it looked like the offense had something going, there was a big pressure coming from the left side that would cause a sack. And one of Desmond Ridder's big problems coming from Atlanta was just fumbling the ball, and we saw that today. He's still fumbling the ball. I was very surprised that they would bench Gardner Minshew for Desmond Ridder, considering that Ridder just joined the team not too long ago. And I thought he was mostly, maybe I'm just used to his play by now, but I just thought like he was mostly fine today. And I was surprised they pulled the plug on Minshew that early.
Yeah, I mean, the first time he got benched, it was more understandable. I think against the game against the Broncos. I mean, he had the pick six that swung the game, and then had a really bad interception later on in the game before he got benched for O'Connell. But this game, like, he wasn't playing well. I think he was 10 of 17 for like 130-ish yards or something like that. But he hadn't, he didn't have a touchdown, but he hadn't thrown an interception either. He was like okay, I guess. But I think it was more about the situation. I mean, they were down 31-10. The offense wasn't doing anything. I think he was just desperate to try to find some type of a spark on offense. And so he just threw Ridder out there. It didn't work, obviously, but I guess you have to try something at that point in the game.
Well, I do think maybe that last touchdown in garbage time to Brock Bowers probably was enough to give him a start the next game after the bye week, is my guess. I mean, I think because they can say, yeah, he came in, it was rusty. I think it was one of his first 4 for 0 yards, but he got a little better as the game went on, took some hits. And I think we saw the ideal scenario where he uses his ability to get out of the pocket, kind of extends the play, throws up the block, touchdown. Again, it's garbage time, but this team needs something to build on, however small, and that could be it as far as the bye week goes. I think they'll make that change. I think they're kind of, like you said, at this point they know what they have with Gardner Minshew. They give him several chances, and I think they'll probably realize whatever reason it's not working out. And then Aiden O'Connell's back, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks, so they can revisit that. But I do think in the meantime, I think it's going to be definitely against the Dolphins when they come back after the bye week.
Yeah, let's talk about the defense. The defense obviously gave up 41 points. It wasn't all on them. I mean, a lot of 3 and outs, turnover right after halftime was big as well, and it set them up for a big touchdown. But kind of rewatching the game, obviously Robert Spillane was not 100% or not even close to 100%. He was a true game time decision today, and he was he just couldn't move. And I'm not putting all the blame on him, but a lot of those passes that were coming up the middle of the field, usually he's pretty good in pass coverage, and he just did not look the same today. And Mike Gesicki just kind of feasted down the middle of the field today.
I also wonder. Adam Butler went down early on. He came back in, but they had no pass rush. Even Max. I mean, except for that one play where he had a late hit, but from the first, I think the first quarter and a half, because the Bengals scored, they got 4 of their first 5 possessions, take away the kneel down at the end of the first half. So they had plenty of time. Burrow was slicing and dicing, even without T. Higgins, who was hurt. So I think the lack of a pass rush to me was pretty glaring today.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Joe Burrow, and we mentioned this before in the preview. Joe Burrow is playing at such a high level right now. Like it's just a great combination of getting rid of the ball quickly on time, and then when he needs to create a play, he can create a play. Because even when the pressure did get to him, he was getting, he was making some Houdini escapes and getting outside and making these great throws out the pocket. A lot of the big plays for the Bengals came on extended plays when Burrow got outside the pocket. So it's just it's difficult right now when you're running to a quarterback that's playing at the level of Joe Burrow. Sometimes when you play a quarterback like that, you have to be able to match on offense, and the Raiders just weren't anywhere close to matching the level of play on offense.
Yeah, I mean, and it was obviously he has Jamar Chase, and he's a great player, but I mean, they were doing damage with just like some guys out there today. I mean, Chase Brown, I don't know if he's really a household name at this point, but he ran for like 120 yards and had like another 50 yards or so through the air. And then, you mentioned Gesicki, but they had like 3 or 4 tight ends that were getting active. And some guy, who's the Ivy League guy? What's his name? Ishabas?
Io Savage, I said.
Whatever his name is, he had a touchdown. Like he was just
He's a
throwing
receiver, though. He's a receiver.
He was throwing to whoever, basically. So like
He's
I
like a
think
tight end. He's like a tight end type
yeah.
receiver. He's a big guy.
Yeah, so I mean, Burrow was just playing his ass off today. Some of those plays, like you said, Ted, it's like kind of what can you do? And for the defense, I mean, they're in a tough position. Obviously, they've been hurt by injuries this year, but they also have an offense that can't run the ball and also can't really throw the ball that well. And so it's a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of quick drives. They turn the ball over a lot and put them in disadvantageous positions. And so, you know, it's just they're still not playing well. There's some missed tackles, some blown assignments, some bad coverage and whatnot. But it's kind of hard for me to harp on the defense too much given the circumstances.
Yeah, I think the defense over the course of the year has kind of made some plays. They've had a lot of injuries, obviously. They kind of rallied, and today was kind of like I think it just broke. And today, they probably had nothing left. They're probably looking, towards a bye out of the side of their eye, and Joe Burrow's dealing and just kind of got out of hand, and they just couldn't. They couldn't, like I said, if you can't get any pass rush, it's going to be a long, hard day. Plus, like you mentioned, Chase Brown was like Todd Gurley out there. Chase Brown couldn't be stopped. So I think, actually, the Bengals actually, I was looking at some of the quotes after the game. They were mad. They thought they left a lot of points on the board. They think they didn't play very well offensively. So they actually left that game thinking that they actually lost a lot of points. They wasted a lot of opportunities to score points today.
Well, I mean, they scored 41 points, so.
Burrow had 5 touchdowns, so he's mad. He's like,
Yeah.
we had 5? Come on, man. Should have had 8.
Yeah, well, for the Raider fans that are pining for Shadir Sanders, I think, if to me, like the high end comp for Sanders is Joe Burrow, guy that doesn't have a very strong arm, but very accurate, great in a quick game, and is able to escape and make plays out the pocket when you can. Obviously, he's not big as Joe Burrow, and I don't think he's quite the athlete that Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow is like, people underestimate how athletic he's really athletic. But he's like I wouldn't say poor man's Joe Burrow, but like Joe Burrow light. If you're into comparisons.
I'm sure Raider fans will take that. I think if you are a Raider fan looking towards a draft, I guess the good news is now they're tied for last place. There's 7 teams now with a 2-7 record, and the Raiders are one of them. There's actually 2 teams also 2-6, but so it's a big scrum at the bottom of the standings for that top pick. So if that's what you're looking for, then maybe there's reason for some optimism, I guess, after today's game.
Yeah, it's good and bad news because like they're tied for the worst record in the NFL, but there's also like a ton of shitty teams in the NFL this year. I mean, there's 9 teams that have 2 or fewer wins, and so it's going to be a highly contested race for that number 1 overall pick, and just the worst picks, the highest picks in the league in general. So Nothing's guaranteed yet. As we mentioned, they're going into a bye week, so they have an opportunity to reset, check on their health, see who's getting better, potentially make some changes, and then come back against the Dolphins, who I think are also 2-6.
Yeah.
I want to say. And in Miami coming out of the bye. They went toe to toe with the Bills today, so there might be another team kind of similar to the Bengals that maybe aren't as bad as their record reflects. So, but that's down the line. But today, as you said, Vic, I think this one just got away from them. They didn't really have anything to punch back with. Between the game getting out of hand, how well Burrow was playing, and then all the injuries really stacking up on him. And just in terms of the injuries, well, we didn't really have anything after the game in terms of updates. Colton Miller, we mentioned Pete, Whitehair. Nate Hobbs also went down with an ankle injury and got knocked out of the game. Obviously, he's one of the key pieces of the defense, so that'd be a huge loss if he misses any time moving forward. But luckily for them, they're going into a bye week, so they'll have some time to get some guys back healthy.
Tashan did notice that Colton Miller's wearing a boot in the locker room, so who knows what that means. But it was weird, I guess. They had 5 guys who had ankle injuries today. That's kind of a crazy, weird coincidence. And then Hobbs kind of blamed the turf. They said that, I was kind of curious. Obviously, the Bengals didn't have any ankle injuries, but I guess he said that the Bengals are more used to the turf than the Raiders were, so I guess their ankles were tested. But 5 ankle injuries is a lot for one game for sure.
Yep. So Raiders lose, similar script, a lot of injuries, and just kind of ran into a buzzsaw in Cincinnati. And like Coach Antonio Pierce said, it's a bad day at the office. That is all we have for you guys today. Stay up, Raider fans. If you're rooting for a tank, the Raiders are another step closer to a top 5 pick, maybe to get that quarterback that's been so elusive for this team. Hopefully they have some better efforts and don't get blown out by 17 points every week. But hopefully they have elegant tank coming up, and this next week we'll talk. It's a bye week, but we'll stop the podcast this Friday, so we'll talk to you guys Friday.
Yeah, take care, guys. Adios.
All right, so peace.